in a small village surrounded by red hills and tall baobab trees, two sisters lived. Their names were Amara and Zuri. They had the same parents but were very different. Amara, the older sister, had bright, sparkling eyes and loved exploring new places. Zuri, the younger sister, was very wise for her age and could grow plants even in the hardest soil. Every morning, while the village was still asleep, the sisters went to the river. Amara would skip happily along the path, thinking about faraway cities she had heard about from travelers. Zuri walked slowly, greeting the plants and birds she saw, carrying her clay pot carefully and gracefully. One day, when the sisters got to the river, they saw an old woman they had never met before. She had silver hair tied with a blue cloth, and her eyes seemed full of deep secrets. In her hands, she held two gourds that looked exactly the same. Amara and Zuri finally realized that the differences were not to separate them, but to make them stronger as a team. Amara's bravery and Zuri's wisdom helped them face their biggest challenge. Together, they made a difference that changed their village forever. As the seasons went by, the sister story spread far and wide, carried by the wind like dandelion seeds. Travelers would stop to hear the tale, and each time it was told, it grew bigger. But what most didn't know was that their biggest adventure was still ahead. One morning, while Amara danced under the baobab tree and Zuri took care of her blooming garden, a strange wind started to blow. It carried the smell of smoke and something else, something that made both sisters stop what they were doing. They looked up at the same time, their hearts racing together. Over the hills, a strange group appeared, unlike anything the village had ever seen. At the front was a man wearing a crown made of twisted gold and black robes. They moved silently, like shadows across the land. Behind them, the grass seemed to die with every step they took. The village elders gathered quickly, their faces serious. They spoke of an old prophecy about two sisters, as different as the sun and the moon, who would face a danger that could harm not just their village, but all the villages across the savannah. As the elders talked, Amara and Zuri looked at each other, remembering the old woman by the river and her strange gods. The man in the black robes introduced himself as Malik, the shadow collector. His voice sounded like dry leaves scraping against a stone as he made an offer. Give me your brightest lights and your deepest shadows, and your village will be safe. Refuse, and watch as everything you know fades into endless darkness. As panic spread through the village, Zuri noticed something odd in her garden. Where Malik's shadows touched, the plants shriveled and died, except for one tiny glowing flower that seemed to fight the darkness. At the same time, Amara felt her mother's necklace grow warm against her skin, and its charms began to glow softly with a golden light. That night, as the village stayed hidden behind closed doors, the sisters met under the baobab tree. The mysterious gourds from the old woman by the river started to glow. One pulsed like a dance, while the other beat steadily like a growing seed. As they opened the gourds together, they heard a familiar voice in the wind. Remember, dear ones, light and shadow are not enemies, but partners in an eternal dance. Inside the gourds, they found simple objects. In Amara's, a ribbon that shimmered like sunlight on water. In Zuri's, a handful of seeds that sparkled like moonstones. But as the sisters held these gifts, they felt old wisdom entering their minds. Secrets about light and shadow, growth and change, and the balance between them. As dawn neared, Malik and his shadow followers began their dark ritual. The air grew heavy with swirling darkness, and the villagers watched in fear as their most precious memories, first laughs, wedding days, and loving moments, started to vanish like morning mist. But Amara and Zuri stood firm, their gifts glowing with ancient power. Amara moved fast, her dance slow and careful. With every step, her ribbon sliced through the darkness, leaving behind trails of golden light that floated like sunshine in the air. The shadow servants tried to get closer, but they couldn't pass through the pattern she made. Light is not just brightness, she shouted, remembering the river woman's words. It is movement, it is life itself. As Amara danced, Zuri planted her seeds in a circle, each one sinking into the earth with a glow of silver light. Shadow is not your servant, she said to Malik, her voice calm and strong. It is the nurturing darkness where all things begin. From each seed grew tall, glowing plants, their leaves soaking up the darkness and turning it into pure, living light. Malik's face twisted with anger as he saw what the sisters were doing. Impossible, he shouted, sending waves of pure darkness toward them. No one can control both light and shadow. But as his darkness came closer, something amazing happened. Amara's dance and Zuri's garden began to move together, perfectly in sync. As the sisters' powers combined, memories began to break free from Malik's crystal pendant. These weren't just recent memories, but the ancient ones, memories of how light and shadow once moved together in harmony. The crystal around Malik's neck cracked, and each crack let out streams of golden light. Then, in the middle of the chaos, a familiar figure appeared, the old woman from the river. Her indigo robes now sparkled with starlight. You forgot, Malik, the river woman's voice echoed, like thunder in the distance. You were once the keeper of twilight, the guardian of the sacred space between day and night. Your fear of darkness made you its slave instead of its friend. As she spoke, Amara's ribbon and Zuri's plants reached out toward Malik, not to destroy him, but to embrace him. The crystal pendant shattered with a sound like ice breaking. But instead of destroying Malik, something miraculous happened. Each fragment turned into a butterfly of light and shadow, flying off to return the lost memories to their rightful owners. As balance was restored, Malik's black robes changed to a deep purple, and his crown softened into a circlet of stars. The shadow servants faded into a gentle evening mist, their task complete. My dear ones, the river woman said, hugging both sisters, you have done more than save your village. You have restored an ancient balance. She turned to Malik, who knelt before them, humbled and changed. And you, O friend, are welcome once again among the Twilight Guardians. In the days that followed, the village changed. Where Amara danced, trails of light stayed behind, creating glowing pathways that guided travelers home at night. Zuri's garden flourished with plants that thrive in both sunlight and shadow, with healing herbs that could grow in any condition. But the biggest change was how the villagers learned to embrace both dawn and dusk, finding beauty in every part of the day. The river woman, now revealing herself as Luna, the original guardian of twilight, began teaching the sisters their new roles. Balance, she said, is not about perfection, but about dance, the eternal movement between all things. Malik, now restored to his true purpose, joined in their lessons, his centuries of experience now balanced with humility and wisdom. As the seasons passed, word spread of the village where light and shadow danced together. where gardens bloomed even at midnight, and where two sisters learned that differences were meant to complement, not compete. Travelers came from far and wide, each leaving with a small gift, a glowing flower, a shadow dancing charm, or simply a new understanding of balance. But the most profound change was in the sisters themselves. Amara discovered that sometimes the most powerful dance was a slow, gentle sway, while Zuri learned that growth sometimes needed bold, quick movement. Together, they became known as the Twilight Sisters, guardians not just of their village, but of the sacred space between day and night.